It's 8:37 on WMAL, where Washington comes to talk. Time to be joined by Bret Baier, the anchor, the host of a special report on the Fox News channel with Bret Baier. Good morning to you, Bret.
Good morning, guys.
Listen, in a few moments we're going to do what we always do and pause, as we should, rightfully so, to commemorate the events of some 14 years ago on this day. And I recall that it was a very impactful day in your life for many reasons. It impacts everyone, but it was when you first came to Washington.
No, that's right. I was called up to actually back up in New York. I was in Atlanta, the Southeast correspondent at the time, based in Atlanta, and I was called to back up in New York after the first plane hit, and then the second plane hit, and then we started to drive from Atlanta, and we were rerouted to the Pentagon.
Yeah, yes.
And started doing live shots for affiliates, Fox affiliates around the country, right after we got there.
I remember I was standing literally shoulder to shoulder.
Shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, because I came out of the Union Station that morning, and my back in the day when we had pagers started going off, and all of a sudden we realized we were in the middle of something, and I ultimately started at Capitol Hill but ended at the Pentagon later in the day. What a day. We'll never forget it.
What a day.
And we shouldn't forget it. We should stop, pause, and remember. I think sometimes with the passage of time we don't think about it enough.
No, that's right. And, those families, and every year, and they ring the bell and they read the names, and over time it just gets, I think, the country has kind of forgotten a little bit about the impact of that day and how much it really did change our future.
I wonder, though, Bret, how much is that is driven by media and how much is organic? I mean, let's face it, it's the 14th anniversary, which is very different than the 10th or the 15th. When you hit those fives and zeros, it ends up being more significant, I guess, in terms of coverage and in terms of special events. But I think the people are still there. I'm looking at Twitter right now, and the top trending topics are hashtag never forget, hashtag remember 9/11, Pentagon, 9/11 Day, World Trade Center, Honor 9/11, Ground Zero, God Bless America, Twin Towers. I've just read them in a row. Those are the things that are trending right now. The people are still focused on that day.
Yeah. I mean, and what's interesting is that you forget that there are young people who have grown up in a post 9/11, world,
mm-hmm.
and they don't really get the pre 9/11 world, which is funny to think about. Pre-TSA, or when we could pull up to the airport, or right next to the White House, or it's
walk right up to the gate with your people who aren't traveling.
Yeah,
right?
It's a different world.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So I want to turn, if I could, for a moment to talk about politics of the moment, and that is, it's all about Donald Trump. It seems on one side. The other side seems to be about the email scandal. Drip, drip, drip. Drip. Every day there is some new development. You guys have been on the cutting edge. What's the latest?
Well, the latest is, this investigation is continuing. The FBI continues, and they are expanding, look into these emails every month. Of course, the State Department is releasing this batch of emails, and that produces another round of stories. I think, the back and forth about the apology and how Hillary Clinton has framed it is interesting, but what's more interesting is that this campaign, I think, is scrambling. She's going to spend 3 days consecutively, I think, in New Hampshire coming up. That suggests that there is some concern there. And, these polls show Bernie Sanders leading now in New Hampshire and Iowa. And you saw those images yesterday from Ohio where it was an event that was just a few miles down from Ohio State's campus. And yet the room was not filled.
Yeah, it was hardly anybody there at all.
Yeah. Bret, I wonder if you didn't watch it live, I'm sure you've now seen some of the highlights of Vice President Joe Biden appearing on Stephen Colbert last night. He was quite introspective and seemingly quite sincere about his indecision right now and where his heart is. What did you make of that? Or is this sort of the waltz that happens before an official announcement is made?
Yeah, I was struck by it, actually. I mean, I was in the camp that I thought Biden was going to get in and get in very fast. I'm not so sure now. I think that emotional kind of outpouring on that interview suggests what he says is true, is that he hasn't fully, and no one would expect him to, get over the loss of his son, and then you have to, he said, have to be 110% in to a run, and I'm not sure that he's there. So I think that the people who are saying that maybe he's not going to get in, I think have more credence today.
And the Donald Trump phenomenon, I mean, there was this thing where he sort of insulted Carly Fiorina, and which many people thought was, it was a little much, but it doesn't seem like anything that happens to Donald Trump sticks.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think he's a different kind of candidate. He is very unique. He has super loyal followers. I mean, just you say anything or report on anything on Twitter, it's an outpouring. And I think that we'll see how long this lasts. I think this debate coming up, they're probably going to press him on specific policy, and we did that a couple of times in our debate, but. Obviously, the big thing that got the attention was the opening question on vulnerability.
Sure. Bret, we got to leave it there as we're going to ramp up here for the moment of silence that'll take place at the White House lawn, but we appreciate you joining us today.
All the best.
Thanks, Bret.